let's do a little bit of background.
Okay. Dear viewers, I know that you have probably been told about World War I. If it's like me, it was somewhere like 8th grade, freshman year, maybe sophomore year. And I didn't care about I didn't care about it at all. And there were too many names and too many countries and countries that don't exist now or were different. But now as a grown-up who can eat ice cream and go to bed whenever I want to, this is actually super interesting if you are into like history, which you're watching this podcast. So you at least have a passing interest in it. So I promised Christian that I would take 5 minutes to do the background because I could get real deep into it. But the streamlined version is this. Okay. In the beginning, God created so
God created the Franco-Prussian War.
I mean, if you're a Calvinist, that's what you do. So empires have kings and emperors and highfalutin people, and they kind of squabble amongst themselves for land. Land equals resources, like the stuff you can dig out of the ground and farmland and all that stuff. So they fight over that, and they also fight over prestige and glory and honor and blah, 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 all that stupid stuff. Now, this was a major problem for most of human history, especially in Europe, until around the 1600s, where the Peace of Westphalia kind of happened. And the idea of that is nation states should kind of be self-contained, and you should basically leave each other alone, because we just keep fighting forever, and millions of people keep dying because your second cousin insulted my brother's third cousin 100 years ago, and so we're going to take that whole nonsense. Why did Britain even want to invade France? That whole thing. Westphalia kind of tried to put that to bed and say, look, these are your borders. They really shouldn't change, and we're going to leave each other alone. We're not going to meddle in each other's affairs, blah, 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 which was great in theory. Fast forward 150 years to the French Revolution. Basically expanded on the idea of the nation not being focused around a single person like a king or an emperor, but it focused on the nation being about the people and the people's identity and the people's culture and how they wanted the country to be, basically, or the kind of country they were. So that gave rise to what's known as nationalism, which is just the idea that whatever country you are from, whatever country you're in, is good and should continue in basically the same way it always had, with the same kinds of people and the same kind of food and traditions and holidays and all that stuff. That's basically what nationalism is. The problem with that is when you have a big empire that encompasses multiple cultures and ethnicities and backgrounds. So now we zoom in, put it on the map. Austria-Hungary. It's in Central Europe, and Austria-Hungary has a whole bunch of different kinds of people kind of crammed together. So you have Austrians and Hungarians, and you have Serbians, and you have Croatians, and I don't think Poland existed yet, but Poles.
They're still part of
that whole mishmash down there. There's 15 plus different ethnic groups, and they do not all agree that Austria-Hungary should look like what Austria-Hungary looks like. Some want to change the whole country. Some people want to make their own country. Some people want to go back to Russia because they're kind of culturally Slavic, like Ukrainians and stuff are in Austria-Hungary. So the Austro-Hungarian Empire is this big old mishmash of different cultures, and they are not getting along very well internally. And so that's Austria-Hungary. Now, their neighbor, which is Germany, has really, in the last 50 to 100 years before the war, has really solidified itself as a dominant power, and they are trying to expand their influence to kind of rival France and Britain, because look at a map. Germany is right here. Belgium's right here. France is right here, and England, Britain is an island right over there. So Germany has a lot of landmass, but historically they've been basically dominated by Britain and France. Now they've kind of broken through that after the Franco-Prussian War, which is a whole other thing we're not going to get into. That war happened, and Germany is now starting to industrialize and really want to expand their influence, gather more resources, become a world trading partner to rival Britain, France, all these other countries. And like any good neighbor, if your neighbor starts buying a whole bunch of guns and has a tank parked in their front yard, you're going to start like asking questions and like, maybe we should buy a tank. Like, I don't know, the neighbor has a tank. It's like a keeping up with the Joneses, but with guns and such. That, like I've talked before about the concept of international realism, which is the concept that countries are self-interested. They want protection for themselves, and they want to expand, and they want to have enough resources for their people and their power structure, and they are willing to fight other countries or take over land, or usually it's kind of nibble at the edges and like, hey, maybe the border was here and now it's going to move 100 miles here. The U.S. kind of did that with the Texas independence. It was like Mexico said the border was here and America said the border was there, and they had a whole war about it. That kind of thing. So Germany is really gaining influence, and it's kind of freaking the rest of Western Europe out, but they're kind of content to just sort of sit back a little bit and not start anything, but they kind of are talking amongst themselves like, we're going to do something about Germany here. But no one really wants to go first. No one really has any reason to go first, especially Britain. Britain is on an island, and they're like, we kind of want out of this whole deal. You guys do your continental European stuff. We're just going to be out here, governor, isn't it? So that's the very, very brief, like, now we're in like the late 1800s, early, like mostly late 1800s into the early 1900s, kind of setting the stage for who these people are and why we're even interested in them.
Yeah. I guess with the Austro-Hungarian situation is you have all these countries right below that are really new and really small.
Like Serbia.
Yeah. Algeria and Romania and Greece and like all these things, that all came from what was known as the Balkan Wars against the Ottoman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ottoman Empire, that name makes it sound like they're really strong at this point. They're basically on their last leg.
Yeah, they were strong 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. They had a series of pretty bad leaders that made that once upward arrow start going down.
Yes.
So basically they kind of lost all that land where all those countries are popping up at. Their borders are being pulled away. And so, and that's where you get like, I'm Serbian, but I don't want to move because like my family's owned this ranch for like 7 generations. So
the Serbian ranch. Yeehaw! A bunch of Serbian cowboys.
I guess I should have said farm.
But I don't know. Whatever. I like the idea of Serbian cowboys. Let's keep it in. I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway, so because it's like, well, why don't you just move? But it's like,
I'm from here.
Yeah.
You move. You just drew the lines around my ranch. I got 500 head of cattle here. You can't tell me to move my fence line.
But yeah, so we'll probably might have to cover a little bit more of that, but I think that's kind of like a basic.
That's the main thing.
The interesting thing though is Otto von Bismarck.
Yes.
As a German chancellor from like 1880s and like stuff like that. Right before he died before the World War I. He said that he predicted that this war would happen. And he said that it would probably be started by some damn fool from the Balkan Wars. And so literally someone from those new countries popping up.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing was a huge powder keg, basically. Yes. It's kind of what it comes down to. And like something was going to happen and everyone was kind of waiting to see what it would be. Well, now we found out what it was going to be.
Take me out, Franz Ferdinand. So yes, this is the part that everyone remembers because like our generation, when we learned about it, Franz Ferdinand was actually like a band that did that cool song, Take Me Out. They do other songs. But the Archduke of Austria-Hungary is Franz Ferdinand. Now the Archduke is basically like a prince. So he's second in line. I can't remember how he's related to the
He was the nephew. And the reason why he was going to be the one instead of the actual emperor's son was because the emperor's son died. And so next in line was Franz Ferdinand. So it's Franz Joseph is the current, at this point in the story, emperor of Austria-Hungary. So, and he was, I don't know how else to say it, not very pro-Serbia.
No.
And so...
No, he wasn't.
But the contrast to that, though, is Franz Ferdinand
was
like willing to hear out what Serbians would want and like try to meet in the middle and stuff like that. And so if Franz Joseph dies like the late 1810s. So if they had if Franz Ferdinand had been the one, if they just waited and he was the one to come into power, then this whole issue, or at least maybe many of the issues that Serbia was having, wouldn't have mattered, because he would have more likely have met better demands.
Yeah, I mean, with them, at least to placate them.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. So,
but they didn't. So, so Franz Ferdinand goes on he takes a trip to Sarajevo, and
with his wife Sophia.
Yes.
The interesting thing with that is I guess to kind of show how Franz Ferdinand was willing to kind of cross the line into like not doing what was so traditional and reserved, like Franz Joseph and like other emperors before him, was Sophia was like not in the same royalty status at all. In fact, it was a huge scandal that they were even going to get married, and it took a long time and a lot of lobbying for Franz Ferdinand to be able to legally or whatever allowed to marry her. And so by the time that it was agreed on that they could get married, he basically had to sign away the fact that their kids wouldn't be able to take over the throne after he had died.
And that would have been a problem.
Yeah.
But,
so they were really looking forward to this trip because they couldn't really be seen together in public throughout Austria-Hungary. But once they got to Sarajevo, where it's like it's more of just like military base, like Serbian people, it wasn't as like big of a deal for them to see in public. So it was kind of a big thing, like, oh, let's go, it's kind of like in the 60s mixed racial marriage thing or something.
Kind of, yeah. And like, remember, we're really not far away from like hereditary marriage, or like marriages to preserve like royal bloodlines and such. I mean, like the Kaiser Wilhelm, King George V, and Tsar Nicholas are all cousins.
Yeah,
they're all related. So like Tsar Nicholas is the leader of Russia, King George is a king of England, and Kaiser Wilhelm is the leader of Germany. So like like hereditary marriage and like power structures, like we're not far removed from that. That is in place right now. So the fact that this even was allowed, it was even entertained, is like you said, it demonstrates that Archduke Ferdinand was more progressive.
Yeah, right.
And the Serbs probably would have gotten more traction with him. But at the same time, like, if you want your own country, you kind of want your own country, and you kind of, I don't know. But anyway, so the Serbians, there was a kind of a secret sabotage group, terrorist group, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, a group called the Black Hand, which, if you're the good guys, I don't know if the Black Hand is the best name for you, but whatever. They hear that Franz Ferdinand is coming down to Sarajevo, and they say, this is a good time. We're going to get him. This plan will go off without a hitch. We got a bunch of grenades, and we'll just spam grenades, and it'll work the first time. No issues at all. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
Yeah, they missed through. Well, yeah, well, unfortunately, the security car behind them got hit.
What a lovely day. I don't know Austro-Hungarian accent, but just driving around and
Austria.
Yeah, they're kind of German, I think. I don't know. But they're kind of just driving around. Oh, that's unfortunate. What happened behind us? Let's take a right and let's get a coffee, dear. And then
instead of thinking that they would be like, oh shoot, we're under attack, let's go into hiding.
The dudes behind us just got blown up.
Yeah.
Let's continue the tour, darling.
They decide to go and try to go to the hospital where the officers were behind them that got blown up. And
great thought.
By sheer coincidence, they take a wrong turn there and happen to run into one of the other assassins, who in that moment had actually been thinking about taking his own life.
Because he failed.
Yeah, and so when he sees them go through, he realizes that's his chance.
Is that the Archduke?
Yeah. God, just give me a sign.
If you're there, I just want to... This isn't me. No, don't do that. Oh. So, his name is Printet, I think, is the assassin. I don't remember his first name. It's not super important. But he just shoots him.
Yep, he fires 2 shots, one at Sophia and then one at Franz Ferdinand. They both die pretty well. Sophia dies soon, like pretty much immediately. Franz Ferdinand, which is like his last words to her were him grabbing her, saying, "No, Sophia, you need to live for our children." And so, we'll have a tearjerker moment there.
It was a pretty good shot, so there's that, I guess. So they're dead, and that pisses off the Austro-Hungarians very, very much. Serbia doesn't like directly take responsibility for it, but it's like they pretty much know it was the Serbians who had something to do with it, especially when they caught Princip. He was a Serbian. I think he was like part of the Serbian military beforehand, and then was involved in this.
Well, the Black Hand was they're like a nationalist group, obviously for Serbia. So it's I don't know if it was ever decided on if it was directly,
like state sponsored.
Yeah, right.
Go get these guys. You can kind of see how it might be, but that's why you use proxies for plausible deniability. It didn't really work in this case because no, it was you. We know it was you. So what Austria-Hungary does is they send a list of demands down to Serbia and basically say, do all these things or we're going to declare war on you. Now, this list of things is just, it was never going to fly. I didn't even bother reading the list. It's just like...
Yeah, well, they agree to most of it. There's 10 demands, and it's kind of stuff like take down any anti-Austria propaganda, fire any high-ranking military officers and politicians who have anti-Austria sentiment, things like that. The one that Serbia didn't agree to was that Austria-Hungary wanted to be involved in their court system.
Oh.
And then that's where they said, no, we don't want to do that.
War.
Yeah.
And then wear your pants backwards for the rest of your lives. Well, we're not doing that. We'd rather die. I'll oblige you.
There's a whole, and we don't need to get into it, but it wasn't so much like, here's this letter. No, we're not going to do that one thing. Okay, war. There's like a big breakdown in communication. And like Germany, what was his name? The emperor,
Kaiser Wilhelm?
Yeah, I think he was like gone while this happened. And so, because Germany's basically like the big brother for Austria-Hungary. And so Austria-Hungary can't go to war unless Germany can go with them because they're just not strong enough. So anyway, there's like miscommunication on the whole thing. And then anyway, point is it doesn't matter because
it didn't work.
Declare war. So
yes. So now this is the real the sticky wicket of World War I is because you now have different nation states and they have promised to be each other's best friends forever. And you can't break a double pinky promise when you promise to be another country's friend. So when Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia, Germany automatically declares war on Serbia as well. Now, when Serbia has war declared on them, we look a little bit north to Russia. Russia is kind of the big brother of Serbia.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of ethnic Slavic people in Austria-Hungary who have kind of wanted to break out, but Russia didn't want to start a whole war with Germany. But since the war has already kind of started, Russia steps in and sides with Serbia. Now, when Russia steps into the war, now France starts looking over because Russia and France have not decided to be best friends, but they've decided to at least go to each other's birthday parties. And so when Russia goes in, France also goes in. And so Britain is, at this point, they say, we're still kind of out of it. This is a continental issue. We're content to kind of stay over here. The U.S. also, because this is 1914, the U.S. looks over and says, yeah, no, this is a European problem. We have no dog in this fight. We have a lot of Germans. We have a lot of Russians. We have a lot of French and English, and they're all kind of split up. So we're not going to pick a side and piss off our own citizens. So we're out of this deal too. That's kind of where it starts.
Yeah.
There's
I mean, I guess the beginning is basically like Germany and Austria-Hungary versus Serbia, Russia, France, Montenegro, and then I guess the Ottoman Empire is kind of there. So
yeah, the Ottoman Empire.
It's like a 2 versus 6.
Yes,
but Germany is like probably the strongest army in the world at this point. So it's like they can actually take this on. It's only until when Britain enters that it ends up being way more contested.
Yes,
basically.
So that's kind of where in 1914, that's kind of where the battle lines are drawn. This is, we've gone through the dodgeball line and picked our teams.